I had the chance to go see a movie that recently came out called Anora, and I think probably going to end up being one of my favorite movies of the year.
Bing bong!
Anora is the story of a female stripper who falls in love with a man visiting from Russia, and the two's relationship quickly accelerates to the point where they get married. And it's only then when she finds out that this guy is hiding some things that maybe you'd want to know about before you get into marrying somebody. There is a lot going on in this movie. The dynamics of this Russian guy who is incredibly rich, like filthy, rich, like fuck you money rich, and a woman who is trying to get out of a life that she is really good at and successful at, but doesn't really want to be doing for the long term as a career. Now, right there, I think that is one of the most interesting aspects of this movie, because I've seen some dialogue going in the direction of, well, what is the message here? What is Sean Baker trying to say? He does a lot of movies where he shines a light on either jobs or professions that are usually ignored in film or not really covered that much. What I took away from this movie was not necessarily the fact that she is a stripper, because that's totally fine, do whatever you have to do to make money. But to me, it was the fact that he was essentially taking somebody who feels like they are trapped at a dead-end job. It had not really as much to do with the profession itself, but really more using it as a symbol for people who feel trapped and are essentially looking for any way out, which is an incredibly vital aspect of this film, because you feel the real desperation within this character to get out of a life she does not really want to be a part of, that she does not really want to do for the rest of her life. And only then could you begin to understand why somebody would overlook as many potential signs that this is not a good idea to get married to somebody so soon as she does in this movie. There are a lot of other things in this film that make it special, but without spoiling too much, I do want to say the way in which this movie is filmed and paced and shot is all really creative. A lot of the times in movies like this, think Uncut Gems, think that sort of chaotic story where it seems like things are going to go completely off the rails, instead of having a lot of crazy action nonstop for the entire movie, Sean Baker several times in this film will sit in a scene for a really long time, which I think I could see some people not enjoying that, which I think I didn't see myself enjoying that type of filmmaking. But one of the things that I ended up really enjoying was that when you sat in these scenes for a long time, it gave way to very realistic conversations, very realistic ways that things would play out. And I think a lot of times in movies now, there will be these really compelling scenes, these opportunities for really compelling scenes, compelling dialogue, but we'll cut away. We'll cut to the next scene, we'll cut to the next bit of action that's gonna happen. And it was really interesting in a film like this, which is very fast paced and very chaotic, to pick several points throughout this movie to just sort of sit in it, to sit in the story, take a beat, and just let the characters live as realistically as you think they could in this sort of scenario. I really enjoyed it. It's this type of filmmaking that I'm not familiar with, admittedly, not seen many of Sean Baker's movies, but I really like this idea that if you're going to take a crazy premise for a movie, which is basically like star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet meets Uncut Gems, it actually has a lot of value to pull back from how chaotic it could be and let a lot of the scenes breathe for really long periods of time. But I found it to be one of the things that made this movie so enjoyable. The performances in Anora are absolutely fantastic. The lead actors are great. The girl who plays Anora, I'm terrible with names, and I know I should have looked it up, but I didn't. But she is fantastic. I would hope to see her in a lot more stuff. I know a buddy of mine told me she was in one of the Scream movies. I actually think she'd make a really good Harley Quinn. She just has those kinds of vibes. She's an incredible scene stealer. And it was a great job casting, because everybody in their roles feels extremely natural. It feels like these are real people. This is a real thing happening throughout this entire movie. And it was an incredibly chaotic ride, but one that was enjoyable in the best possible way. Anora explores a lot about classism, about the haves and the have-nots, about extreme wealth and people struggling just to get by. It's really interesting how these themes are symbolized in a movie like this, with a man who is just a goofy, 20-something-year-old kid who has never really known what it's like to struggle and fight and scratch and claw to get to where you want to be, and a girl who's fighting, scratching, and clawing to get to where she wants to be, but isn't actually making very much progress in that journey. And so to bring those two characters together in a film like this, it creates a really interesting dynamic. All of the other side characters, the henchmen that end up showing up partially through this movie, where the story goes, and the fact that it really just keeps going and going, and again, in the best way possible, because it's a story that I didn't want to end until it felt like it reached a satisfying conclusion, which it absolutely does. And that's really my final compliment I wanted to pay towards this movie, is that the ending is incredible. If you are following along with this character and everything she's going through, it makes complete sense why this film ends the way that it does. It is a movie about somebody that is desperately trying to figure out where they fit in their own life and what they really want and what they need. The end of this movie is handled perfectly. I could not have thought of a better way for this story to go, and I really enjoyed it. Anora is one of the most powerful movies of the year. It is absolutely worth going to check out if you're able to catch it. I love when movies like this sort of come out of nowhere. This is not a movie I had seen a trailer for. This is not a movie I was aware of coming out. And as someone that's unfamiliar with Sean Baker's work, it absolutely makes me want to check out the other things that he's created. If you have a chance to go see Anora, highly, highly recommend it.